to Stories à la mode, a short version of the talk show à la mode that is presented online with one or maximum two guests, either on link or here with me on stage. The talk show à la mode is presented at twice a year at Uppsala Konsert Kongress, and it's a platform for the arts, dance, music, visual art, design, fashion, and social issues. And so there will be many artists as my guest. And today I have the honor to present Mr. Donald Byrd, who's here from Seattle on link. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, it's great to have you here. It's early morning, right, in Seattle?
Yes, it's not quite 8 o'clock.
And I'm very happy that you got up to be here with us.
I'm very happy that I got up too.
Yes. So, you are a choreographer. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And when I first got to know you, because I do know you since quite some years back, you were, I would say, an upcoming but slightly angry choreographer. And today you are a legend in United States, within the dance field at least. Would you say that you are as angry?
I am definitely not as angry.
Would you agree that you were angry in when I knew you, which were in the 80s?
In the 80s, I would say yes. I mean, I didn't think that I was angry,
Mm,
but at the time, I did not think I was angry. I was angry because the progression of my choreographic career was not happening the way I wanted it to, at the rate that I wanted it to progress, even though a lot of that was on me. And also, I was angry about, I think, unresolved issues in my history and my past.
mm,
So in other words, I was angry about everything.
mm,
And there were some positive things about the anger. It did fuel, in some ways, my ability to work because it gave me a lot of energy. It was actually the fuel for the energy I needed in order to work. For viewers, for people who witnessed it, who came to performances and stuff, it kind of gave it a profile.
mm.
Uh, and it was that it was angry. It also kind of was a little stereotypical. I mean, in terms of of how people thought about me as like, oh, it's the angry young black man. The short answer is yes. I would say that I was angry back in
Mm.
the '80s when I met you.
So today is May 11th when we are recording this, and you're in a very specific situation with the COVID-19 and quarantine. How is it for you?
It depends on what aspect of it. On some level, it's really scary,
Mm-hmm.
and it's scary because I mean I'm 70 years old, and so I would be in a high risk group. There's some very positive things about it. I actually wrote a piece that I was using for we were at Spectrum Dance Theater, where I'm the artistic director. We have been doing a series of From the Vault, which are past performances that we are streaming online,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was writing something for that as an introduction, and I talked about with this extended time, or that this way that time seems to kind of now stand still
Mm-hmm.
in some strange kind of way, or it's just pulled out, it's stretched out. Uh, what can we do during that time, or what can I do? And so, one of the things I said I could do is that I could connect with friends and people from my past that I had not had much time to connect with previously,
Mm-hmm.
and also the people that are in my life ordinarily. I could kind of give them some time as well to connect with them. So I've been doing a lot of calling people from my past. I've been doing that. And also, I've
Mm-hmm.
been thinking a lot. I've been writing a memoir. So I've been doing some work on that, not as much as I would like to. I've been doing a lot of analyzing, which I did with some of the dancers from the company. I did with all the dancers from the company, actually, uh, analyzing the kind of methods and techniques and processes that I use when I'm making work. And so it's not so much trying to codify them, but maybe that is what it is. But it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of making a glossary of ideas, you might say, that I use in making work. The technical part of it, not the kind of imaginative part, but the technical part of it.
Not all artists and not all choreographers so-called make it the way you have. And like I said before, I knew you as an angry but upcoming choreographer, and then you've sort of plowed through over the years, and you are where you are at now, which is a very acclaimed choreographer. What do you think has been your success?
I think, I mean, it's interesting because you use the word plowed, and I think that's right. I think maybe if there's an, I just kind of plowed through. I mean, I think I can't, I have to acknowledge that ambition is a big part of it that you know, I am and certainly was then earlier in my life very ambitious and tenacious and driven. And I think that sometimes I thought, I mean, and they are tied together, this notion of success, and the success is tied to kind of whatever making it means. And so, um, and I think I wanted to, uh, quote unquote, make it. I wanted to be acknowledged for what I was doing. But I think the thing that I was driven most by was I wanted to be the best artist I could be, the best choreographer.
Mm. Uh, when we talked then a couple years ago, you were at my cabin, and I asked you, do you ever think about retiring or slowing down or something, because you do work from project to project to project to project. If you remember what you answered.
I think I probably said the only thing that could stop me from doing what I do is death or catastrophic illness or something like that.
Right, but you said it was much shorter. You said, "No, I'm an artist."
Or is that what I said?
Yes, that's what you said. But it sort of implies all the rest. But
Yeah.
for the audience who are not artists, what did you mean?
Hmm. Uh, what I think it, I mean, what it means to me is that being an artist is a life. It is not a job or occupation. It is, I mean, it can be, but that's not how I think about it. I think about it is just a commitment to a certain way of being in life. It's kind of like the, you know, it's the artist's way that you are inside that until your death.
When we spoke the other day, we talked about your situation and uh, what you are thinking about now in the situation, being in quarantine, and the future with your company and Spectrum Dance Theater, and I thought you gave such a beautiful image of w- that you can think endlessly of how will you move, how are the dancers going to move after this
Yeah.
situation. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. The whole COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on live performance in particular, uh, and dance specifically, profound if it stays, if it becomes a permanent part of how we have to live, how we have to of the, what we have to consider when making work around some of the issues around social distancing. We will have to do things really differently. And so I've been thinking about uh, what might we do that's differently that actually is that still we still have a sense of what dancing is. I mean, I think you know the I mean, dancing is theater, and so part of the theater part of it is that theater usually is people uh, in a space, a shared space, and that flow of energy between the spectator and the performer uh, is essential, and I think is essential and central and primary to the theater. I think
Mm.
with dance, you can have dancing without the theater of dancing. You can do it, in film or video, or you know, and so you can have the image of people dancing, but it's not quite the same as that dynamic experience that happens when everybody's in the same room together. You lose that sense of a kinesthetic response and empathy and those kinds of connections, that excitement of it all, the, the the sense that it's happening in that moment and in that moment only, and then that moment will be over. That kind of generates a kind of excitement, enthusiasm, and exhilaration. So I've been thinking about those things. And I can keep thinking about them because I don't have a what will replace that as a way of doing dance theater. So I
Mm.
don't know what that solution is, or what the answer is. So uh, I'm kind of uh, and I really mean kind of. I'm kind of excited about exploring what it is, how it might work, uh, and if there's a way of coming up with a solution or with something that will be as satisfying differently perhaps, but as satisfying as the experience of being in the same room with people when they're dancing. One of the things that dancing does is that it can be really amazing at uh, kind of putting in front of us a kind of visual representation of what relationships are like or can be. So that duet, or how the relationship of two bodies to each other, or multiple bodies to each other, that it can be metaphorically about how we exist as a culture, as a society, in our personal lives, in our that way. And so if people can't touch, then or they can't be too close, then what kinds of expressiveness is diminished by that loss? What I learned really early in my life was, and I would say it this, I might have said it to your group, Maud, but maybe I didn't know it then, was I learned, if you get knocked down, just get up. Do not just lay there. And so I think we've been knocked down now in some ways. And so what I'm doing is getting up, but I don't know what the world is going to look like when I'm up.
Mm. Would you say that you are, in general, optimistic or pessimistic about the near future?
I would say that I'm optimistic. I mean, for a lot of reasons. I mean, some of them is, I think that's how I'm kind of put together. But I think human beings are kind of wired that way for the most part. It'll be better tomorrow. And 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 I also, I think that what I do is that I believe that well, let's work to figure something out and a solution, and it's not even, and so even if we don't figure out a solution, something that works, the process then becomes really important and then fulfilling, and so that's the success right there. Uh, of that, there are things to do, or things that can be done, is what I think makes me optimistic.
Mm. Uh, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or to bring up right now in this conversation that you haven't talked about?
During this whole lockdown quarantine period, with thinking that I've been doing and the conversations that I've been having with dancers in the company and stuff, I've really come to believe that being in process is really where the value is, not necessarily outcome. uh, Even though we all want positive outcomes, but being in the process, that the real learning and the real growth is in is being in the process, whatever the process is. And so, in regards to this COVID-19 and what dance for me will look like going forward, is that being in the process of discovery and trying to come up with ways of thinking about possible solutions. So this idea of exploration uh, with these under these new circumstances is exciting for me. It's exciting enough to get me up in the morning. You have to have a reason to get up in the morning, you know. Uh, and it used to be, um, and I think maybe even back in the days when I knew you, that what would get me up in the morning was that I was angry about something. Now, what gets me up in the morning is the possibility of coming up to tackle some problem, some concern that will fuel me
Mm.
for another day.
So thank you, Donald, for having been here with us today and sharing your work, sharing your time, sharing your optimism. Keep plowing through there. It's great and inspiring to hear. And thank you to you, the audience, who have been sharing this with us. And next week we're going to have another guest, and it's going to be Jari Shamge, who lives in Uppsala, and he's going to be here with me on stage. So tune in then. Until then, have a wonderful time. Bye.